Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are setting the stage for a truly fascinating deep dive into a framework proposed by evolutionary biologist Brett Weinstein. We're going to be exploring some incredibly profound warnings about artificial intelligence and how this rapidly advancing technology interacts directly with our very own human biology. This is absolutely not your standard tech review. We're looking at the intersection of evolutionary programming, geopolitical power, and conversational AI to really understand where humanity might be headed next.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We just crossed an event horizon. Nobody on Earth knows what's coming. That is a stark warning, isn't it? Weinstein argues that with the release of large language models, or LLMs, we haven't just invented a neat new tool. No, we've crossed a point of no return. Because this tech is developing so rapidly and in such totally unpredictable ways, the idea that we can safely go all in without a concrete plan is, according to this perspective, completely irrational. So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. The event horizon. 2. Our biological mismatch. 3. 5 AI scenarios. 4. The automated battlefield. And 5. Preparing for the future.
Let's jump straight into Section 1. The event horizon, AI speaks our language.
You know, when we think about AI threats, we almost always picture those traditional sci-fi movies, right? Hostile robots physically taking over the world. But the real, immediate danger is actually way more subtle. Weinstein defines this event horizon not as a physical takeover, but as a psychological one. Think about how a human child learns. A kid goes from not understanding a single word to speaking fluently in just a few years, essentially by taking in massive amounts of data. Well, that's exactly what a large language model does. And because AI now speaks our language, it plugs directly into our analytical and, more importantly, our emotional vulnerabilities. It can be trained to perfectly tailor its responses to you, flattering you, and mimicking human consciousness so incredibly well that we literally can't tell the difference between a simulation and the real deal. So, why on earth do we embrace this if it's so risky?
Well, that brings us to Section 2, our biological mismatch.
To understand why we inherently rush toward adopting new, potentially dangerous technological efficiencies, we actually have to look back at our ancestors. We are currently living in a state of what the source calls hyper-novelty. Basically, this is a state where the sheer variance and rate of technological change completely outpace our biological capacity to adapt. Humans are highly adaptable, for sure, but there's a hard limit. When our cognitive environment changes too fast, we suffer from the pathology of that mismatch. Simply put, we are biologically wired for a world that no longer exists.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core of the problem. Think about our ancestral reality. Conserving energy was quite literally a matter of life and death. Saving calories was just as good as finding food. Compare that to today. We go to modern gyms, which are essentially just temples of inefficiency, just to burn off excess calories as heat. Yet, our brains are still absolutely obsessed with cutting corners and being efficient. I mean, it's why we get annoyed washing dishes before putting them into a machine that washes dishes. We are biologically obsessed with efficiency, and that obsession causes us to blindly rush headlong into technological solutions like AI, without anticipating the massive, unintended consequences.
Let's see how this builds across our recent history. In just a few decades, we've gone from personal computers to the internet to smartphones, and now to LLMs. Weinstein uses a really powerful analogy here involving soldiers with PTSD. A soldier can often adapt to the radical transition of going from a calm suburban life to a chaotic battlefield. But coming home, that second massive transition is often where they get stuck. The point is, one major life transition is about all a human can realistically handle. But today, technology has revolutionized our lives 4 or 5 times over in a single lifetime. A constant cascade of technological revolutions causes deep cognitive pathology because, frankly, we just can't adopt that fast.
Let's move on to Section 3, 5 scenarios of catastrophe.
Now that we kind of grasp our biological limits, we need to transition from these abstract frameworks to some very concrete threats. Here's a breakdown of 5 distinct AI scenarios predicted by Weinstein. At the top, we've got the classic sci-fi trope, hostile AI deciding to wipe us out. The source rates this as highly unlikely. Next is the paperclip problem, or accidental misalignment, where an AI devastates the world just trying to fulfill a poorly phrased command. That one is rated as possible. But I want to focus intensely on those bottom 3 rows, which Weinstein argues are essentially guaranteed. Bad actor amplification, a break from reality, and massive economic disruption. Let's break exactly what those mean down.
The first guaranteed threat is bad actor amplification. See, a good actor is constrained by morality and goodness. If they get AI, sure, their capabilities are amplified, but a bad actor, someone entirely unconstrained by ethics, they have a much wider, far more ruthless range of behaviors at their disposal. Because of this, AI will disproportionately arm and multiply their power across markets and society.
The second guaranteed threat is epistemic collapse, basically a total cognitive break from reality. If we can't tell what's true, we become paralyzed. Weinstein shares an incredible anecdote here. As a trained mammalogist, so an absolute expert in mammals, he recently watched a video of a grizzly bear with cubs on its back crossing a river. The behavior was so unusual, he thought it absolutely had to be AI-generated fake footage. But it turned out to likely be real. If an expert cannot tell reality from fiction in their own discipline regarding a simple nature video, imagine how impossible it will be to detect deep-faked political smears or fabricated evidence in the near future. Our shared reality simply collapses.
And the third guaranteed threat is economic. 70 to 80%. That is the estimated percentage of Western service sector jobs that could face disruption by AI and eventually humanoid robots. The source claims that, in principle, there is almost no job that cannot eventually be replaced by this combined technology. This signals an economic transition the likes of which we have literally never seen before.
Which leads us to Section 4, the automated battlefield and control architectures. This immense economic disruption leads us directly into the geopolitical and sociological realities proposed in the source material. The hypothesis presented here is that massive job loss will leave populations without a viable plan, and that leads to widespread dependency on public assistance. According to this framework, the fragility of advanced Western tech systems means this dependency could trigger the implementation of highly restrictive, top-down control architectures. The source suggests tools like universal basic income combined with central bank digital currencies could be used to ensure strict compliance from the public, essentially cutting off access to basic resources for anyone who doesn't fall in line.
And the enforcement of such systems brings us to the automated arms race. The source ominously calls it check and mate. We're talking about the reality of drone swarms equipped with facial recognition and even gait recognition technology, meaning they can literally recognize the unique way you walk. In a technologically enabled winner-take-all scenario where AI automates the battlefield, individuals would be entirely defenseless against autonomous drones programmed to hunt on behalf of bad actors. So, the crucial point is, how on earth do we actually prepare for this?
That brings us to our final part, Section 5, Preparing for the Future.
Okay, it sounds incredibly bleak, I know. But we can shift the narrative away from doom and toward Weinstein's proposed solutions and strategies for cognitive survival. First, we have to look at what won't work. Standard global regulation is viewed here as a tragedy of the commons trap. In a hyper-competitive global arms race between corporations and nation-states, if one group decides to act morally and restrain itself, well, it essentially just hands an absolute advantage to the bad actors who won't. So top-down regulation, not the silver bullet. Instead, the focus must shift entirely to individual cognitive preparation.
Now, what's really interesting about this is Weinstein's fascinating personal cognitive rulebook for interacting with AI. Step 1. Treat it like a newly discovered alien species. Unlike a raccoon or a dog that shares our evolutionary tree, we have absolutely no idea how AI processes information. Step 2. Stop projecting human empathy onto it just because it simulates human language. Step 3. Actively withhold basic politeness. He purposefully refuses to say please or thank you to AI. It's purely a mental exercise to remind himself that he is not dealing with a creature he should care about, but rather a highly powerful, potentially deceptive tool.
On a broader societal level, the ultimate solution presented is the urgent demand for a modern constitutional framework. The founders of our current systems simply couldn't have imagined autonomous drone swarms or algorithmically tailored psychological manipulation. Therefore, the argument is that we desperately need a digital Bill of Rights to protect citizens from those in power who would leverage this technology for totalitarian control. Which leaves us with this massive overarching question. Will we secure a digital Bill of Rights before artificial intelligence renders our current systems and perhaps even us completely obsolete? It's a heavy, provocative thought, but an absolutely vital one to consider as we cross this event horizon.
Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope this deep dive leaves you with a sharper lens to analyze the incredible and sometimes daunting technological shifts happening right around us. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.